To begin with, then, I think maybe if we could provide a little bit of context, because obviously out of home has changed enormously over the past few years, perhaps more than any other advertising medium. So what have been some of those major trends?
I think actually we need to remember what hasn't changed, which is that out of home is still one of the biggest brand building media out there. It's still the place that big brands land big ideas with the public all at once. It's still the place where the power of the public promise applies and brands can get out there and build their stature. And so even the chicest, most online brands, whether it's Apple or Facebook or Google or the smaller startups, all big users of out of home because of the stature it continues to bring. But I agree the way it delivers that stature has changed a lot. So I have in mind, for example, the application of data. A lot of real-time and near real-time data has come into the way we plan and buy, and digital. I think the extent of digitization of out of home has been quite dramatic over recent years. And I think the opportunity we've all got now is to make sure that we use digital out of home as a digital first medium rather than as a really souped up out of home scroller. So what I want to be seeing is people using digital out of home the way it should, planned flexibly to location, time, events, audiences, triggers, and so on, in the way that any other digital medium would be. And I think we've still got some way to go on that. But the opportunity we've got is that the data, the connections, and the flexibility across the scale that digital now has in the UK means that's there and ready to be done.
Oh, fantastic. So really at the kind of the foothills of what we can do with digital out of home. But then how has this year particularly affected that? Have we seen people investing in that technology in, readiness for when everybody comes out of lockdown? Or, have we seen other trends emerge over this last year in particular?
It's clearly not the year any of us wanted. And from a business point of view, we as a new challenger in the business, we have to decide early on what's our approach to this. And we decided very early on, we still believe in our vision and we've doubled down and investing harder to deliver it. So we still believe in national coverage for out of home and digital out of home, treating people and partners right and doing digital right. And the reason I share those thoughts in answer to your question is that I think the opportunity in a year like this is to say we've got digital into places that it wasn't in before. That's one of our big missions. We've built out over 50 screens across the course of the year on 48s and hundreds of D6s to get closer to truly national coverage. It's one of the big things that we set out to do and we have done this year. And as an industry, I think there's been a lot of talk for many years about the use of data, smarter planning tools, even the dreaded P word, programmatic or automation, depending on your point of view on it. And I think what we're starting to see is some of these tools are becoming a reality. So I'm not a big fan of just copy-paste online RTB models. I think that can commoditize to nobody's benefit. But if it becomes a tool that allows flexible, smarter, data-driven planning, that is a good thing, and that is starting to become a reality. So we and others in the value chain have started to invest in that, and I'm really pleased to see the progress the industry is making. And if we do it right, it can enhance the value for everybody in the value chain, delivering smarter campaigns that are more performant for advertisers, which is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. And so is it true to say then that out of home, perhaps more than any other medium, is having to adapt to changing consumer habits? So we've seen this year in particular that we've, a lot of the media organizations which didn't take into account, this rapid rise to working from home and consumption habits and how people move through the kind of funnel to purchase have been left by the wayside. So, is it true that out of home has been as affected by that as, any other medium?
It's hard for me to compare to other media. What I can see is, of course, during the second quarter, especially in April and May, out-of-home audiences fell quite a lot. But since then, it's come back in ways that have been quite different. The way people travel has changed. So even though the total audiences are up, where those audiences are and how they behave has varied a lot. So there's a lot of data that suggests people are working, shopping, playing nearer home than they were. And that suits us as a media owner. Our strategy is all about being where people actually live, work, shop and play rather than the major metropolitans. But it also shows as a medium, the audiences are out there and ready to be influenced. And aside from audiences, I've definitely seen a big shift in the way people are using the medium and are able to book and respond flexibly. So whether it's classic, paper or vinyl or digital, people are able to get the right deals with the right terms to respond to what's happening out there and have campaigns that are tailored to the right audience at the right place at the right time. So I think what we're seeing, and I know retailers have talked about 5 years of progress in 5 months. I'm hoping that on the positive, we'll be able to see the application of smart data, flexible planning, smarter booking and buying to be able to give these much more flexible targeted campaigns that give much more value to advertisers and make the medium work harder, which is what we all want to see, is delivering value to the advertisers. And they're finding new ways to do that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you mentioned then that rise of more targeted sort of local campaigns, I suppose, for out of home. And before you mentioned a couple of other opportunities. So how have those impacted how agencies and brands in particular are thinking about out of home?
I think we are seeing more data-driven use of out of home, whether it's targeting a particular location or using data to know when to run particular copy or campaigns. We're also seeing people being much more flexible on time. So because it's a digital medium, people are much more able to come in and say, what can I book for this afternoon or for tomorrow? And we're able to get created live in a matter of minutes. And I think most of the large media owners would say the same in out of home. So digital out of home is a really flexible medium that can be very responsive in the short term, as well as booking medium and longer term laid down campaigns. So sometimes clients need to know they've got the certainty and the value of booking ahead. But equally, when there is a short-term response needed, we're probably the fastest responding medium, I would say now, for the speed with which clients can get new creative working live for them.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. And you've actually preempted my next question, which was going to be, what new opportunities are there? So I suppose the question instead is, are brands in a position now to take advantage of this as of this minute, or is there almost an educational element about going to those brands and saying, well, look, here is what we are now capable of doing?
There's always going to be some education, whether we're a media owner or a specialist agency or a media agency. It's always our job to help the advertiser and everyone else in the value chain to know what's out there and what's possible and what can be done. And one of the things I learned going through a previous crisis, the 2008, 9, 10, 11 financial crisis, one of the learnings from that reapplies, which is this is largely about confidence. So being able to see the way the government is investing heavily in job support, for example, being able to see at least one, and I think several vaccines coming through. They're not going to flick a switch and change the world overnight, but we can definitely see light at the end of the tunnel. We can definitely see reasons to believe that in a year's time, we'll be having a very different conversation. So I think the most important thing is to look back at what happened in that previous time the world turned upside down. And what we saw then was that, of course, brands expected value when they bought media, but also those who did grew out stronger, faster and bigger. And that the market share gains of those who invested coming out of the curve was very, very dramatic. I think the IPA is claiming 20 to 30% plus market share growth for those invested coming out of that crisis. And we're just starting to see some of the more forward-looking brands recognizing that right now isn't just a short-term tactical responsive moment, which it was earlier in the year, and they were right to be cautious, but we're moving into a phase where I hope with the greatest of respect for the restrictions, because failed restrictions are the worst of all worlds. We need the restrictions to work. But we're also seeing that people are getting used to living their lives in this world, and brands and businesses are used to continuing to figure out how do we operate, how do we grow in this world. So those who are able to say, actually, life and business has to continue safely and invest out of the curve, we know we'll reap the benefits in the future. So I hope what we're able to show clients is with smarter data, more flexible planning, and more flexible commercial terms, we're able to give them great value that will build their brand for the longer term by doing the right thing, investing out of the curve now.
So given everything that you've spoken about in terms of pushing into new markets and kind of I suppose the, not to overuse the word, but the challenges of 2020 so far, does this now put people who are working in the out-of-home category firmly into the bracket of challenger businesses now?
I think challenger is a really interesting concept. When I was client side, I worked in incumbent businesses and I worked in the challenger. And within out of home, I've worked in one of the incumbent businesses and now I'm leading a challenger. And there's nothing right or wrong. What I do know from my own experience is that challengers have more fun. And so we're out there at the moment looking for what do we find frustrating in the market? How do we think it ought to work better for all layers of the value chain? And what can we do to fix that? Which is quite an exciting mission to have. So I think what's important as a challenge is to remember the strengths that are still true and still real. We're still a medium that big brands build huge stature in. And I'm a big fan of the way they do that across all media owners and all buyers. So I want to make sure that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'd also love it if, as a medium, we can embrace as a positive the disruption of challenge that we have. And I think we've done a really good job, particularly in the UK, has led the world in how we digitize out of home. and getting a lot of volume out there. And part of our mission is to make sure that digital out of home is a truly national medium. We think there are gaps in many, many places. So we think we can fill that out. But what I want to see is the medium challenging ourselves in the way we think about digital. So I see some really good campaigns that are a digital first, 21st century native approach to using data and digital planning to get the right people, the right time, the right place. I also, if I'm honest, see some campaigns where I think that could have been run on a scroller. And I find that disappointing. When we got a really high quality, high definition screen with a 4G connection and a smart computer connected to it, I'd like us to be using this for a dynamic digital medium rather than a super posh scroller.
Moving on then to the awards, which I know you're very keen to to boost the profile of people who are working within the industry. So given everything that has happened this year, it's, I'm hoping that next year we won't have to talk about it in this kind of way, but why are awards so vital now in particular?
It's an odd feeling, isn't it? Because in a year like this, it seems strange to celebrate, and I think we have to remain humble and recognize the challenges that so many people are facing. And I do, and I know we all do. At the same time, we've got to the point where functionally most businesses have got through the challenges of what do we need to do, what's going to be different about whether we're working from home or serving our clients differently or a different business model. A lot of very difficult heavy lifting has been done functionally. We're now working out as leaders and as people in organizations, how do we carry through that momentum and motivation over the coming months, even as we get out of crisis mode, but we have to learn to live with COVID. And part of what we need to do is maintain the motivation and the desire and the drive. So what I love about awards is normal times, I say I want to leave an award ceremony having met some great friends that had a good time, having been made jealous of some outstanding work, and having been inspired by what me and my organization can do. And I think that still is true. We still need that human connection. We still need to learn from the best work that others are doing, and we still need the fuel to fire ourselves and others up to do the best work that we can do. So in a way, I'd argue they're even more important this year. Awards are even more important this year to be able to get that emotional fire going. But normally as a medium, we tend to be a pretty social industry. Normally we would get that by meeting, by seeing, by talking. And I think in a year like this, it's even more important that we have a chance to highlight and celebrate the best work and the people behind it.
Oh, definitely. And so for these awards in particular, what are you hoping to see overall and from individual entries in particular?
I guess I want to see people using the medium well. So you always want to leave an award ceremony thinking that was a really deserved winner. So I want to see some brilliant basics where big brands are building stature using the best medium for doing that. So I want to see some really good down-to-earth creative that just is a brilliant idea, cleanly well executed. I also want to see people using the new potential of the medium through data and digital to be flexible, dynamic, and targeted the right people at the right place at the right time. It's a mantra the industry's been talking about for years, and we've got to the point where we can deliver the reality. So I'm hoping to see a really good blend of good, solid, traditional brand building campaigns and exciting, modern, digital first, new mentality. How do we plan and buy differently to make the creative work hard and show a standout dynamic message in what has been a volatile world.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that. I know that everyone here is looking forward to the awards, and hopefully everybody at home is looking forward to them as well.
Thank you.